Welcome to this session of guided meditations on mindfulness, awareness, and a kindness and compassion practice. When we do these practices, we go through a sequence of practices that you can do on your own. And we begin with grounding and getting settled. We're usually so busy and zooming around and very much in our heads. So this practice is getting more in our bodies. So we'll start with that. And then work with a stabilizing practice, which is awareness of the, or mindfulness of the internal sensations that go with inhalation and exhalation, with the breathing. Following that, we open outwards, decentralize, and open up to awareness of environment, and mix our mind, our awareness, with the space, so that we have an interdependence of ourselves and our environment, and a reducing of the feeling of separateness, of me and other, this and that. And on the basis of that, of reducing that feeling of separateness, that's the ground for practicing kindness and compassion. Now, an important element to remember through all of this practice is that we have different anchors for our attention. Some a little more tangible, and some that aren't really anchors, but just awareness itself. The mind has a tendency to want to latch onto things, and it also has a tendency to want to wander off into daydreams. It's important to understand that the basic nature of our mind is presence, being authentically present. We don't have to create that. That's who we are. And the nature of that presence includes two aspects. One is light, and the other is warmth. And I'm using that as a metaphor of like the sun sheds light and warmth together. The nature of our minds is the capacity to know or to have clear experience, and the capacity to feel, to have a connection and warmth. The highest virtues of these are wisdom and compassion, or selfless love. What that means is that we have the capacity for that already in us. It's not something we have to find from somewhere else, bring in from somewhere else, or create artificially to manufacture. Very simply, like the metaphor of the sun, if there are clouds, you don't have to try to move the sun in front of the clouds. You don't have to try to create a new sun, find another one. All you do is, it's about parting the clouds, and the sun is already shining. And that's our nature. It's already shining with wisdom and kindness. It gets distorted by ignorance and confusion. So what we're trying to do is clarify the confusion, part the clouds, and let our wisdom and compassion shine through. On the basis of that, whenever we're practicing, if we get distracted, the moment we realize that, that is a break in the clouds. And the sun's already there. So we don't have to think, I should come back to the present moment. That is where we wake up. If you're sleeping and you are dreaming, and you wake up from your dream, you don't think, I should come back to my bed. You're already there. You don't say, oh, I was dreaming, now I should wake up. By knowing that you were dreaming, unless it's lucid dreaming, and you're aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, which is another practice. But when we wake up from a dream in the usual way, we don't have to further wake up. We're already there. In the same way, when we wake up out of a daydream from a distraction while we're meditating, we don't have to think I should come back to the present. You're already back. The practice is to remember what you were doing. And in fact, the Sanskrit word for mindfulness practice, or sati, is remembering what you were doing. We know what it's like when we don't have that. We get distracted on our way to the kitchen, and we walk into the kitchen, we go, okay, why did I come in here? And we don't remember. And we're lacking that mindfulness because we got distracted. But it doesn't mean we don't end up in the kitchen. We just have to remember why we went in. So in the same way, when we're practicing get distracted, we don't have to come back. We're already back. What we come back to, what we return to, is whatever practice we were doing, whatever the anchor for our attention was. So that's the basic setup. If it's helpful, one thing that's recommended is to sharpen our awareness of the distinction between wandering and being present, so that if you'd like, you can give a mental label whenever you realize you were wandering. At that moment that you're back, you go, thinking or wandering. I'd rather you didn't use a negative term like distracted or lost, but instead just wandering or daydreaming, and just make that little mental note and then return to the object of attention that we've chosen. Okay, so that's the basic instruction. And we'll go through, in the tradition, the particular Tibetan Buddhist tradition that I was trained in, what's recommended for some of these practices is short sessions, but many of them, rather than one long session. At the same time, there's also times when it's good to do a long session and work through different levels of connection with our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But for today, we're going to do short sessions, take little breaks, regather ourselves, and go to the next practice. So, to begin with, as the gong fades, let your eyes gently close and find, with your feeling, your bodily sensation, what a good posture feels like. Start with your sit bones pressing into the cushion that you're on. And have your spinal column upright but not rigid. You can feel a gentle tension as if the back of your head was extending gently upward and your tailbone pushing down into the seat. Just gently, not too hard, just a tiny bit of tension there that we're holding our spinal column as our tent pole, as it were. And then we let everything else in our body just soften, as if it's the canvas hanging from that tent pole before it's pulled out into a tent. As for the positioning of your legs, if you're in a chair and your hips are higher than your knees, you can have your feet flat on the floor, about hip width apart. If you have long legs, You can gently cross your legs in front of you so that your knees are no higher than your hips, preferably a little lower. Let your arms hang down from your sides. Feel that your shoulders aren't rolled forward. And because that's our tendency, you may want to feel that they're just gently pulled back a tiny bit. Let your arms hang down, and your upper arms now are perpendicular to the ground, hanging straight down vertically. Leave your elbows where they are and just swivel your hands up so that your hands are, each hand is palm down on the respective thigh. It'll probably be slightly above your knees. If the back of your head is extending gently upward, your chin will probably come in naturally. Just see that it's not tucked way down so that your head's tilted forward, because then we get very drowsy, and that your chin is not tilted up and head back so that we end up getting a little spaced out. But if you gently extend the back of your head upwards, the chin comes in naturally. Your jaw is relaxed, your lips are either just barely touching or slightly parted. Your tongue can be natural. Often it'll just drift up to the top and rest on your upper palate just behind your teeth. Right now your eyes are closed, but when we do other practices, as we start to do some of the awareness practices, we'll gently open our eyes. And scan your body with your awareness, starting at the top of your head. Just notice if there's any tension that you don't need to hold this posture. It's like a scanner of awareness going down your scalp, forehead, eyes, nose and cheekbones, the back of your neck and your jaw. We have some tension in the jaw very often. Just let it melt as much as it will. We're not trying to force it. Forcing to relax would be paradoxical. Just let it soften. Your neck, out where the neck joins the shoulders, the tops of the shoulders. Very often we have tension there. We're holding our shoulders up and not even realizing it. Just let them hang. Collarbone, shoulder blades, upper arms. Chest and back, rib cage all around. Down past your stomach. Sometimes we clench our stomach. Let it soften. Lower back and deep belly. There's a slight tension holding our posture with our lower back. But let any extra tension around it soften. without losing your posture. Let your deep belly soften. Hips and pelvis, pelvic area. Soften any tension there. Upper legs, hamstrings and thighs, forearms, hands, all softening. Knees, calves, ankles and feet. If you'd like, take a nice full breath in and imagine from the top of your head all the way down. As you breathe out, sweeps out any residual tension that you don't need to hold your posture. Now, in doing this practice, we may feel like we're in our head looking at the tension in the rest of our body. But we want our awareness to be more centered. Let it drop down. Let your awareness feel like your awareness is dropping down, like falling back into a nice, soft, easy chair. Relax it to the back of your skull, the back of your throat, and drift down behind your chest, behind your stomach, down to the deep core of your torso, resting there a few inches below your navel, just in front of your spine. Feel the three-dimensional quality of your body. Your torso expands as you breathe in. And your back, your lower back expands as well as your stomach, your belly. Breathe out, everything contracts back in. It's a subtle movement, like gentle eddies at the bottom of a clear pond. And again, let your weight sink down. Really let the chair support you. No one's going to come and pull it out from under you. Relax about that. Sink down. And imagine that you're merged with the earth. You're part of the earth, but your posture extends upward majestically like a mountain. And be an observer of your breath more than a director. Notice your body breathing itself. So the breath comes and goes, sometimes deeper, sometimes shallower, longer or shorter, like the wind coming and going. Let your mind relax. We've relaxed our body. Relax your mind, not so much trying. Whatever arises in the space of your mind, it's like a bird flying across the sky. It doesn't really leave a trace. Thoughts, feelings are all appearances. They're all arisings in the space of the mind, in the sky of your mind. So let the sky be open to whatever is going to happen, whatever is going to come across. Body like a mountain, breath like the wind, mind like the sky. As the gong fades, gently let your eyes open about halfway. Now we're including in our awareness the space that we're sitting in, just the near space around you. We're a mind and body in this space. Let your attention rest on the internal sensations, what you feel as the breath comes in, what you feel as the breath goes out. We already talked about feeling the expansion and contraction in your torso. Feel it filling and emptying. You might feel the sensation of the breath coming in through your nostrils, and we want to primarily breathe through our nose. Cool and dry coming in, warm and moist going out. It can be the movement of the breath, down and filling, emptying, up and out. In, down and filling, emptying, up and out. So you can make the object of your attention that movement of the breath, or one point in your body that you feel changing as the breath goes in and out, filling and emptying. And we'll do that for a couple of minutes. Your gaze, rather than looking at something just a few feet in front of you, because your eyes are half open and your gaze is downward, under the eyelids, soften your gaze. It's as if you're seeing the space that you're sitting in, rather than looking at anything. If you've gotten drowsy and your eyes closed, just reinvigorate your posture and raise your gaze a bit. Be open to a little more of the space. If you've wandered into daydream, remember, when you realize it, you're already back. Just return to the sensation of filling and emptying as the breath goes in and out. As the going phase, just relax. Let go of the practice. Move a little bit, refresh your body. That's the idea of short session and fresh start. And take your posture again. And this time let your eyes be completely open. Settled and grounded in your body. Eyes open. Looking straight ahead. If that's a little distracting, you can lower your gaze slightly downward, but open to the full space that you're sitting in. As the breath goes out, what actually happens is it dissolves and mixes with the atmosphere, becomes one with the atmosphere in the room, the air in the room. In the same way, let your awareness that was focused before internally on your body, let your awareness open out. As the breath goes out, be one with the breath going out. As it opens, as the breath goes out and mixes and dissolves into the atmosphere in the room, let your awareness go out, mix with the space, and dissolve. And just rest in that open awareness. The breath goes out again, and again feel that feeling of out, dissolve, and rest. Out, dissolve, rest. There's no notion of picking the breath up at a particular point, just the general sensation of the awareness. Out, dissolve, rest. And again, if you get distracted, the mind wanders into a series of thoughts, into a daydream. When you wake up from it, just smile, have a sense of humor. It's what mind does. And pick up on the next out breath. Connect with your posture, reinvigorate your posture. Out, dissolve, rest. We'll do that for a couple of minutes. Relax. Let go. Notice what's happening now. My teacher used to say the best meditation happens after the gong rings, because you hear the gong and you go, oh, now I can relax. I don't have to try so hard. And guess what? We've opened and are resting. Now, this open space is the ground of doing the kindness and compassion practice. And all of our practice can start with a motivation that it's not just for ourselves, but we're doing this so that we can be of more benefit to others. And that's our aspiration. May my practice be of benefit to others. We start with that as the ground rather than a self-centered practice. And part of that is the relationship of happiness and suffering. All beings want to be happy. All beings want to be free from suffering. So our aspiration is, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, including ourselves. So this particular practice of kindness and compassion is based on a connection with others, not a separation. So it has to be grounded in a vast openness, which I'll lead you through. And then from that, we do what's called exchanging self for others. And that basically says what we usually feel like is, I want to get rid of what makes me unhappy, and I want to keep and get what makes me happy. And instead, what we're going to do is kind of put ourselves in other shoes. The Native Americans say, walk a mile in the other person's moccasins. So on their behalf, we take, as we breathe in, imagine that we're taking away from them their suffering. And as we breathe out, we're extending from our heart of kindness. You can see the moon over my shoulder. A quality as if we're radiating the cool moonlight of kindness that's soothing and brings them peace and happiness. If we think of someone suffering from illness, we can breathe in the disease, and send out the cool moonlight that gives them ease, replacing their dis-ease, their disease with health and ease. If it's emotional turmoil, we breathe in that turbulence and transform it and send out peace, quiet. Calm abiding. If it's an overall circumstance of tragedy, like the wars going on around the world, that we breathe in the pain that the victims are going through and the confusion. Take away the confusion that the aggressors are manifesting and the hatred that they're manifesting, and send out peace and acceptance to all. Freedom from fear to the victims, freedom from hatred to the aggressors. You can work with this in any way that you'd like. We start with an individual or a small group of loved ones. It's easy to want to take away their suffering and give them happiness. And then extend it further and further until you include all beings, humans and animals. We'll do this for the last few minutes of the session. As the gong fades, open your eyes, look straight out, and imagine that your awareness extends out beyond the room, out to the sky in all directions. Open awareness, open to everything under the sky. Breathe out and extend your awareness beyond the sky, out into space, in all directions, farther and farther, beyond the stars and the galaxies. Breathe out. Imagine your awareness open in all directions beyond the farthest stars. Rest for a moment in that infinite openness. No here, no there. No this or that, no self or other. In that space of non-duality, of not two. You can leave your eyes open or gently close them, whichever you feel more comfortable. Imagine before you your loved ones, friends and family, those closest to you, who all want happiness and all want to be free from suffering. You know what they are going through. Feel their pain, and as you breathe in, take that in, and your heart of wisdom and compassion transforms that into loving kindness. And as you breathe out, extend that out to them so that it's like a cool moonlight filling their bodies and soothing their pain, and giving them peace, health, and happiness. And now include more, everyone you've ever met, as best you can, including people you have difficulty with. And now include yourself. Breathe in all of their suffering and your own into your heart center. Transform it and radiate out to yourself and to others. Patience, acceptance, kindness. Breathe in, we all want to be free from suffering. Breathe out, we all want to feel happiness, peace, and health. And as best you can, extend that circle of compassion and loving kindness to all beings. And if you want, you can particularly focus on those, like those in Ukraine, the Congo and Nigeria, wherever else in the world wars are raging, wherever else in the world there's starvation and illness. Take away their pain and suffering. Take away their fear and hatred. Gather in with compassion, relieving them from suffering as you breathe in, radiating out the cool moonlight of kindness, filling them all beings with peace, health, and happiness. As the gong fades, let go of the visualization of what you're imagining. Just re-stabilize yourself in your body, your posture, awareness of your breathing, awareness of the space you're sitting in. And as we began with the intention to be of benefit to others, we conclude by affirming that and dedicating whatever benefit came from this session to others. So you can repeat after me or use your own words to the same effect. But we say, may the practice I have just done be of benefit to others as well as myself. And to cultivate generosity and extend that wish for the benefit of others even further, you can say, may the practice we have just done be of benefit to others even more so than to ourselves. So thank you for your kind attention and your practice. And that concludes the guided meditation session for today. So thank you. And now we can, everyone can unmute themselves if they would like. We can have some discussion. And Tim, we got your message in the chat. You can't unmute, but you can chime in the chat. Yes, Rodrigo.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Hi, everyone. I would say that the sequence of the body scan, the settling of the breath in my belly, awareness mixing with space, like the sequence is helpful. It's like it helps me to drop into it.
Thank you. It's good.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites, I'll point out that, oh, bye, Brendan. Thank you. One of my favorite things is those few moments when I say we could have some discussion, any comments or questions, and nothing happens. I call that waiting meditation, in which we're open. It's this openness, like what's going to happen, but nothing happens. And that's kind of that same open space after the gong rings, that we're not trying to do anything, we're just being our open selves, which is so cool. Oh, Tim, hang on one second, Michael. Tim wrote, I really like the shorter, more frequent meditation approach. Do you think this type of meditation practice method is just as beneficial as the long, deep meditations? It's different. There's both. One thing that happens in a longer meditation is you sit there and kind of the surface stuff that came up, you know, what I'm going to make for dinner, what I had yesterday, what so and so said to me, what I'm going to say to them, all that little blah 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 of the everyday stuff. Kind of, we get tired of that, and our discursive mind drops into deeper feelings and emotions. So in the longer sessions, we get to see more of some of those deeper things. As far as connecting with presence goes, when you get into the longer ones, sometimes there's fatigue and we lose track and we kind of get discouraged. Like, oh, I just can't, I just keep going off into daydreams. And the idea of the shorter meditations is kind of like, oh, I want to leave when I'm feeling like I want to do more. It's like an exercise session. If you go to the point where you're totally exhausted, you say, oh, I don't want to do that again. But if you feel like, oh, that was great. Oh, I can't wait till the next one. Then it's encouraging. So there's a lot of that. And the break, sometimes when we talk about a short session, we don't even move. We just drop the practice, have a moment of openness, and then start again. So that's the notion of a short session as well. Okay. Michael, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Rodrigo said. For me, sometimes the linear path is doesn't work, and I've noticed that instead of fighting it, I'll just start where I'm at with whatever's taking place. Even for example, the Tonglen sending and receiving. Sometimes I'll just feel an overwhelming sense of sadness. Not that I'm depressed, but just my heart is just open, and it starts very wide, and then I go in, as opposed to starting in from a intention, like from somebody that's close to me, and then working out. Same with sometimes with the breath as well. Sometimes it's just very hard start off with that sequential process. Any thoughts on that?
Yes.
Because what I'm noticing is that I'm fighting and I'm creating more chaos for myself.
Yes, I agree. And that is one thing I want to point out to everybody else. Michael's been doing these practices for a long time. And the idea is that it's important to do the stabilizing especially when you first begin. It's like if you have a new puppy, you don't just let it run around in the yard hoping that it's going to come when you call its name. Instead, you have it on a short leash, and when it pulls away, you say its name and pull it back to you so that it makes the connection. You're training it. So at first, we have to train our mind and tame it because it's kind of wild. And it's like a bucking bronco. For another metaphor, it's a horse, and you have to train it, and then you can ride it. Now, once you've done that training, you don't want to be so rigid in your practice and goal-oriented and say, I've got to get this right. I got to get this right. I'm supposed to do it this way. I'm supposed to do it that way. You do want to start out getting yourself settled when you first sit down, because we're so busy and moving and moving and moving. You got to take a little time to just settle in. But once you've settled in, and start with working with the practice, then when that feeling of sadness overcomes, as long as you have that open space as your reference point, which is what's necessary to do that compassion practice, there can't be so wonderful me feels so bad for pitiful you. It can't work that way. It has to be an unbiased interconnection that's not better or worse. So, but with that flash, then when the sadness happens, absolutely. And the practice is to say, I'm feeling the sadness. Oh, may the sadness of others be included in my sadness so that they're free of it. And whatever happiness I have, may that be extended to them. That's part of the practice. So if it's natural to move into that way. You have all these at hand. Now, the caution is, if you just go willy-nilly, however you feel like, sometimes you're creating a practice setup that just matches what you want and what you want to feel comfortable with and what you don't feel comfortable with. And then you're kind of making a practice session in the shape of your ego. Yes, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that. I don't want to do this one. I don't want to do that one. That would be like, I don't know, let's pick a sport, for example. I don't know, golf. And that would be like only practicing what you're good at and what you like to do, and then not understanding why you can't play better. I love hitting the ball off the tee. I don't like working on the putting and the short game. So I'll just keep hitting balls off the tee. Well, then you get out on the golf course, you got to do all of them. And you can't understand why you're no good, because you only do the things that you like to do. Part of the discipline is working with all of them. And the ones that you feel a little edge about, well, maybe you actually need to do a little more of those. But you don't have to be rigid and say, I have to follow these rules of the order of things in that way. Just make sure that you're not picking out personal preferences. Okay? Mike.
If I could just comment on what Michael said. Now, this is also subjective, obviously, but I actually function better in a linear way. I'm naturally a linear thinker. It's not that I can't be spontaneous or go out of order, but I'm naturally a linear thinker. I'm an historian, and I think about time in the Western sense, which is we start at the beginning and then we move step by step onward in a very linear fashion. So I'm a linear thinker in most other ways in my life and the things that I do. It just is more comfortable for me. I don't have to do it that way. But this is the subjectiveness, I guess, of just your personal self. And that's that is a reflection of my personality and the way I naturally think is to be more linear. So I'm comfortable that way.
And that's a good point, Mike. And I just want to mention one thing. We're a little bit past the time, so if people need to go, that's fine. It was great having you. But if you want to stay, I'm happy to go for a few more minutes. So to respond to that, I actually did a study in graduate school at the time, many years ago. They were talking about open classrooms. And the study that I did showed that open classrooms don't work for everybody because there are kids that need structure. They actually function better in the classes where there was structure and discipline, but other kids, it inhibited their creativity and they needed the open. They did better in the open classroom. So discovering what matches someone's personality, absolutely that's the case. And then once you've mastered that particular discipline, or you're good at that, then it's interesting to find out what it feels like to do it the other way. Is that one way of doing it my security? And that limits us. If we only go to what the levels of our security is, then we never dive, we stay in the shallow end of the pool. Never learn to swim. Okay, so try all those different things in that way, but go with what you're. It's so funny. I have you on each side, one on one side and one on the other, in the screen in the gallery. So there's open, nonlinear, and there's linear. And we work with both. And in fact, that comes up sometimes in different parts of our lives and our activity, that we see things in that particular way and can understand them. In fact, excuse me to the non-golfers, but there are trying to see how and imagine how a putt is going to go. Some people are more linear and need to see this point to this point to this point to this point, and others just need to have a general feel for it. So I think that's interesting. Doug wrote about people in Ukraine hoping to remove their sadness as opposed to taking on their sadness. Yeah, the actual practice, which is challenging, and we need to, and we have to go kind of, it's really needing to feel like it doesn't land on us. We are taking on their sadness in the sense of we want to, you can't just have a cold compassion. You actually have to feel what that feels like. And as best you can. It's hard. I try to imagine, what if all of my precious belongings right now, if I had to stand outside my house and watch a tank drive over the house and crush all of my precious belongings. I went, oh, okay. So that's what that feels bad. That's devastating. So you feel the devastation and yes, you want to take that from them, take it into your heart, and transform it and send out to them peace and soothing the pain, taking away the pain and letting them be able to, at a certain point, there comes acceptance. It's like the process of the sequence of grief, right? The stages of grief. Whenever we have loss, whenever we have pain, whenever we have that, there's a kind of grief that we go through. And at the end of the grieving process is acceptance. And then people rebuild. Whenever I think of what's happening there, again, with my age, I think of what happened with all the bombing of North Vietnam. And it took many, many years, but they rebuilt. And in the process, we want to, if I wasn't clear, yes, you want to take on their sadness and transform that energy. But you take it on not in the sense that, oh, now it's on me and I have all this stuff. But I like to use the metaphor of a tuning fork. Okay, that you know, if you have a tuning fork and you hit another one, this tuning fork starts to vibrate. It picks up the same frequency. So you're picking up on the frequency of pain and suffering and sending out compassion. And interestingly, what happens sometimes is you hear about an opportunity to donate and you go, oh, I'm going to do that. And it turns into action. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much. We're going to do this 2 weeks from today, not next week, but 2 weeks from today. And as Tim knows, I'll be on the Monday night before that. If you're interested in connecting with that, you can email me. I'll put my email in here. It's pretty easy to remember. There's one. I'll give you two of them. Even easier. Okay, so either of those emails, come on and on Monday night, and we do it at 5 p.m. Pacific, and then we'll be on together the next morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. So thank you very much, and may the benefit of all of our discussion benefit others even more than ourselves. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.